Across the face, a couple
Yeah.
times, yeah.
Yeah.
Give him a good spanking.
Yeah. Let's talk about another candidate who is Arthur Dudley. Dudley showed up in the court of Philip of Spain in 1587 and claimed to be the son of Robert Dudley and Elizabeth. He said that he was raised unaware of this by a guy named Robert Southern, who told him on his deathbed who he really was. And Dudley fled the country, he said, because he was afraid that Elizabeth's agents would murder him to keep the secret that he now knew.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if they were going to kill you, they'd have killed you a long time ago.
Well, yeah.
They have no idea when you were told the truth.
Well, the only guy who knew was the guy who told him, who died immediately afterwards.
Right.
Robert Southern. So if he just kept his mouth shut, he was perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how much of that makes sense. Arthur Dudley did actually exist. There's strong evidence, at least, that he did. There's mention of him even in the records in Elizabeth's court, that they were aware that he'd showed up at Philip's court in Spain.
Mm-hmm. The thing that, though he showed up in the court, it's really suspected that he wasn't really who he said he was, and by that I mean he may not have actually been Arthur Dudley, because there were spies everywhere. And it seems like there's some research that indicates that he was a spy who really stuck to his story and would not let it go.
That is what a lot of people believed at the time. Yeah. And so I don't know too many people that take this guy seriously. I mean, he was around. He did make these claims, but he was probably just an imposter. You think?
And when do we know? When would he have? How old was he? When would he have been born?
He would have been born. Well, depending. I've heard various estimates, but based on his age, it was estimated that he was about 25, I think, and that he would have been born maybe in 1561. There was one significant thing, which was that Elizabeth was ill. She had this spell where she came down with edema, which is swelling of the tissues, and
it was called dropsy at the time, right?
Exactly, and maybe she could have been pregnant. She was bedridden and all that. So this is also around.
And how old would she have been?
She would have been 28.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, okay.
Okay.
I mean,
but
yeah. I at that as someone who is currently 28 years old, at that time, that seems like it'd be late to be pregnant.
In that day and age?
Yeah, in that day and age, that seems like a late pregnancy.
Yeah.
We're talking, people are getting pregnant at 15, 16, 17, maybe as early as 13, 14.
Maybe.
To carry a baby to term and have it be healthy and survive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unheard of. Certainly it's not unheard of, but it seems it's
yeah,
late.
I mean,
it's
the older you get, the harder it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah, and
that,
with modern medicine, it's like fine, but at those times when we were like, oh, hey, yeah, leeches. That'll solve your problem. No problem.
Yeah.
Or what was it they were given? They would give mothers during or after childbirth ergot. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
I just heard this recently.
Yeah.
And
Here's some mold
thickened
for
the
you.
blood.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no, you're going to be good. It's some mold. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just eat it.
Just chew on this.
I know your body thinks that that's poison, but just eat it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's why a lot of that stuff was like alcohol, for example, makes you feel better, makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It's really kind of poison.
Uh-huh.
And things like bloodletting and stuff, what would happen, the blood pressure drop would make you high, it would make you lightheaded and feel
and you would
feel
think
better.
That's fine.
And they concluded, hey, this must be beneficial because they report feeling better.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, 28.
28 is possible.
It's possible. It's totally possible.
It's totally possible.
And the fact that she was sick with dropsy, which, bedridden for a couple months.
Bedridden, kind of
swollen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Maybe she was pregnant. I don't know. Well, let's go on for our next suspect.
Well, I'm sorry, just quickly. Wasn't that about the same time that Francis Bacon was
Yeah, it was.
born too?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
So was either Francis Bacon, a.k.a. Shakespeare, or was Arthur Dudley? Or neither one.
Or neither.
Yeah.
Or she actually just had edema.
Yeah, probably. That's what it was. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I know edema causes swelling, but that'd be a lot of swelling, to be actual pregnancy-sized.
Every woman carries a pregnancy different, and I've seen pictures of people who I didn't believe are pregnant who are 9 months pregnant, and I've also seen pictures of people who are 9 months pregnant that I think you're just obese. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Everybody carries a pregnancy differently, and if you've got all these corsets and you're kind of bedridden and people are thinking, oh, you're sick, it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'm not willing to discount it.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's go on to our next suspect, who was Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford, who, of course, was also rumored to be William Shakespeare. I know.
Of course, yeah.
I know. I don't know. I mean, there's a whole huge community out there of people who are arguing back and forth on this guy was Shakespeare or this guy was Shakespeare. And they have all kinds of theories and evidence and everything. It's,
and again, that may be an episode in their
who
future.
you never know. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have to get some serious scholarly work done if we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are hardcore. I mean, these guys aren't just guys on Reddit or anything like that. They're writing books about
Hey.
this. Yeah. And not that I'm
Redditors
slamming-
write books.
Not that I'm slamming Reddit, but yeah. This is a little more scholarly. But anyway, back to our thing. The offspring of Oxford and Elizabeth would have been a guy named Henry Wriothesley, who was born in 1573. And I don't know whatever went on to happen to Henry, but there's not much out there on him. But at this time, Elizabeth would have had to have been about 40, which causes me a little bit of doubt. That 40, seriously, at that age.
There's no way. I mean, even now, 40.
Even now, it's tough to get pregnant at 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem I have with all these theories is that again, this all took place after she ascended to the throne.
Except for the first one.
Yeah, except for the first one with Thomas. So it's like imagining it would have been a little easier than, say, Princess Diana going about her everyday business, pregnant, and not having the paparazzi not notice it.
Yeah.
But still, there's a lot of people around. There would have had to have been people attending to her at childbirth and stuff like that. So somebody you would think would have talked.
Mm-hmm.
You think?
At least after the fact.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah.
You would imagine so.
You can understand maybe while she was alive, you're keeping somebody rich. There's no reason to talk, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's good reasons not to make the queen mad by running your mouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, a lot of people would have written it down in their memoirs or their diaries, their journals. There would have been mention of it. I wanted to talk about one more suspect for a father, which was a guy named Miles Stafford. And he has very recently been put forward by a guy named Seth Margolis, who published a novel called The Semper Sonnet. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to reveal this, but Elizabeth does have a child very early in the book. And again, which I want to clarify is a work of fiction.
But Seth did a ton of research.
He did a lot of research
yeah.
for this book. And so let me give you a quick rundown of the plot. Our protagonist is a woman named Lee Nichols. She's discovered a previously unknown sonnet by William Shakespeare. When she goes public with it, all hell breaks loose. And she finds out that some people really, really want that sonnet for a reason she'll discover if you read the book. So anyway, it's a fun read. Seth, we actually were able to get a hold of him. He was kind enough to actually answer some questions about Elizabeth and his research and his book. And so let's talk to Seth here for a sec. So Seth, thanks for talking to us. We really appreciate it. And I guess my first question for you is that you have found a new potential father for a child that Elizabeth might have had, named Miles Stafford. So, did Miles really exist?
No, so I'm sorry to say.
It's okay.
It was much. I found it much more interesting to invent him and then dispatch him quickly. You never really hear from him, other than that he had this rare genetic disorder that passed on this tendency to shivering, as someone calls it in the book, which I thought was an interesting sort of way to keep his sort of lineage alive, was, not in a particularly positive way. It also made it, when you're writing a thriller, it made it interesting because, when the Lee Nichols in the 21st century heroine of the book would come across various locations where the Filer family lived, she would see, for instance, 2 fireplaces in one room, and realized that became an indication that these people who lived there had a real obsession with staying warm. So that's the one thing that I had my fictional father of the Elizabethan offspring pass on to his descendants. And of course, the name Filer, as you know because you read the book, it's full of wordplay, and the word Filer is an adaptation of the French word fils for son, and er, of course, for Elizabeth Rex. And French was the main language spoken at the time, or a version of it, in the Elizabethan court. So it was it was interesting, or likely, that she would have had, if she had a child, might have given him that name just as a sort of sly reference to who his at least his mother was.
So in real life, one candidate for a child was Elizabeth. That's really popular with a lot of people. Is Robert Devereux. What do you think about him as a suspect? And
Right, he was one of several people that she sort of showered her royal pleasures on in ways that mystified people at the time. Why him? And so there were always rumors. And she did have a very close relationship with his father, Robert Dudley, also known as Lester. And I think she had his bedroom moved next to hers, and there were all sorts of. So if there was going to be an offspring, it would have been most likely with him. And there was actually there was someone named Arthur Dudley who surfaced at one point who claimed to be the offspring of the two of them.
Showed up at Philip of Spain's place.
Yeah, because the Catholics never saw her as a legitimate, period, but as a legitimate monarch of England. So if they could find any sort of scandal that would, add further illegitimacy to her, it would work to their ends. And in fact, in my book, that's one of the reasons that she disguises the fact that she had a child, was that it would imperil her claim to the throne. And of course, in the Semper Sonnet, she has the child before she becomes queen. Most of the rumors about, or the theories about her having a child, have her having the child while she was queen. And as I said, there's so many of them. She at one point. She took to her bed. She had some sort of mysterious illness, which I think they called at the time dropsy, but today we would call it edema, which is the swelling in the midsection. So, of course, if you and I think that's pretty much historical fact that she was taken to her bed with dropsy or edema, and that she had a swollen abdomen. So, if you're inclined to think that she had a child, this might have been a good time for that child to have been carried, because she had, she could have used that as an excuse to disguise her pregnancy.
Our last question, you've done a lot more research on this really than we have, and so I guess I'd like to know, do you really think Elizabeth had a child?
I don't know. I would suspect not. I tend to be a discounter of conspiracy theories. And so, it was a really intriguing idea for a novel, and there are bits and pieces of her life and the circumstances around it that might lead you to think she had a child, but I tend to think she didn't. But I think it's sort of like, if you think about the Kennedy assassination, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist in general, so I think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. But a lot of people just feel that it's just unthinkable that this great man, who was so beloved at the time and maybe even more so in retrospect, could be brought down by one lunatic with good aim. You want it to be a conspiracy because it seems unfitting that such a great person could be eliminated by such a nobody. With Elizabeth, there's a similar frustration that, arguably certainly the greatest monarch in English history, and maybe one of the great leaders in world history, just ended. Her line ended with her death, and the Tudors were no more. Her genes were no more. How could that be? It doesn't seem fitting somehow. So people constantly want her to have left something behind. And in a way, I think that's part of the fascination with her in general, and it's certainly the reason that a lot of these theories continue to flourish, and it's really the reason I wrote the book.
All right, Seth, I tend to think you're probably right. I think that it's unlikely, like you say, people just can't accept it, and people love to speculate about royalty. That's just a major sport here in America and Europe.
We don't have royalty here.
Yeah, well, we do. It's British royalty. A lot of people seem to worship those people. Anyway, thanks again to Seth for talking to us. His book, if you care to pick it up and read it, is called The Semper Sonnet.
It's out now.
It's out now.
It's a fun little book.
Oh, yeah, it's a fun read. Now, back to our mystery for a second here. There's one other permutation of this, which is that she didn't have a child because she couldn't have a child because she was actually a guy.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let you run with this one because I want to have a heyday with it. I just want to let you tell the story because this one is so outlandish to me. to me because it's so crazy.
This story actually has a pretty good pedigree, though.
It does.
You know, it's sometimes called the Bisley Boy, and it begins with Bram Stoker, who you may have heard of. If you haven't heard of him, he's the guy who wrote Dracula.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is a toothy book.
Yeah, it is. Actually, a pretty influential book when you think about it.
It's got some bite.
Stoker claimed the story is actually not something he made up, but it actually originated in the village of Bisley in Gloucestershire, which is where he heard the original story from the locals. And he wrote about it in a book called Famous Impostors, which he published in 1910. So according to Stoker's story, Elizabeth was sent to Bisley in 1543 or 1544, the dates are a little vague, due to a plague outbreak in London. And I checked, and there was some plague at loose in London at that time, although it was not the Great Plague, which was the one that really slaughtered a lot of people. But ironically, in Bisley, she got sick and died anyway. And her governess, Kat Ashley, you remember her,
Yep.
learned that Henry VIII was on his way for a visit. So what to do? This is actually kind of like a sitcom, you know, where you're taking care of your friend's cat, and the cat gets killed. You got to go find a duplicate.
Wasn't there, like, didn't Kramer pull that once or something on Seinfeld? Yeah.
It's a well-recycled plot line, yeah, it is. So Kat combed the village looking for a little girl who looked similar to Elizabeth and couldn't find anybody. And by the way, you know, isn't that weird? And some people are coming around looking at your kid saying, can we borrow your kid for like a couple of decades?
For the royalty.
Yeah, that would have been tricky.
Yeah.
But then she had an idea. There was this little boy who lived nearby, and Elizabeth had actually been playing with him somewhat. And he was thin and pale and about the same size and had reddish hair like Liz. And so she had this idea that, well, we'll swap the little boy in, we'll dress him in girls' clothes, and Henry will be totally fooled. And so
Henry's an idiot.
yeah, and of course he was fooled
Because he's an idiot.
Yeah,
Right.
and the other question,
He didn't notice the hair dye.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is that Bram Stoker, I'll take his word for it, that he honestly was told this story, but how had they kept this for centuries? He said that they were so isolated that the story just never got out. That's what he actually wrote. I read that. I read part of his Famous Impostors book.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but okay. I'm gonna, go ahead.
Yeah, well, anyway, here are Bram Stoker's reasons why it probably is true. Number one, Elizabeth was very secretive. She seemed to have a big secret, some people said. Number two, she was very close to her inner circle, just several people. She treated them all very favorably, kept them all close, and that was probably her way of...
Are we debunking this now? Or are we
No.
Not yet.
Okay,
No.
great.
Not yet. Hold on.
She refused to marry. There were rumors that she couldn't bear children. There was apparently, he says, I had no way of checking this. There was that correspondence between Elizabeth and Catherine Parr. Apparently, the style of those letters changed after this swap. And one of her teachers felt that she was way too smart and clear thinking to be a woman.
Insert Devin scoffing here.
I'm laughing at the absurdity of that.
I'm like actually offended by that. This is like thousands of years later, and I am offended.
Well,
Thousands.
take it up with
Thousands.
Yeah, take it up with Bram.
It's
Keep going,
thousands,
Joe.
okay?
Keep going. Ignore. Just keep going.
I am obviously not a man, so I am not as smart and clear thinking
Well,
as Queen Elizabeth.
Devin,
was.
can I point something out?
It's hundreds.
Steve and I always solve our mysteries.
You do,
You
and I
never
don't.
do.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Actually, Joe, can I point something out?
Yeah.
Only you ever solved the mystery.
Wait. Can I point something out? Joe's a liar. He never solved it.
All right, fine. Let's get back
What
to
else do we have here?
Oh, let's see. She had a large wig collection, which
Yeah.
obviously she was probably using to cover up male
pattern baldness.
Yeah,
Obviously,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I have them.
Yeah, she had only a few regular doctors, and she refused to ever see any other doctors because they're going to find out that, guess what? She's got something going on down there. And she also insisted that no autopsy be done after her death.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, all those good reasons.
Great.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's still hard to believe Henry VIII was such an idiot that he wouldn't notice that there was a little boy.
While the royalty didn't spend all day, every day with their child, they would know what their child looked like. So, yeah, that's a difficult one.
Yeah, and frankly, you know, it's a really big gamble because you got to hope you've not only found yourself a little boy who sort of resembles Elizabeth, but who actually has some acting skills.
Yeah.
And knows something about Elizabeth's life. And so that was a big chance that Kat was taking there. The other reason, the wigs, Elizabeth, there were people that actually saw her without her wigs on, and she wasn't bald. She had a full head of hair. It was
No,
gray.
she didn't. She didn't have a full head of hair.
Yeah.
She had smallpox scars because she got smallpox at one point.
Oh, that's right. She did have smallpox.
Yeah,
Luckily for
and
her,
she had
survived it.
pretty severe scarring from it, and that was one of the reasons that I've seen listed that she had more wigs after that was to cover the bald spots that were caused by the scars.
Yeah, but it wasn't male pattern.
No, it wasn't. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't my hairline,
Oh.
which is a very shallow hairline, by the way.
I
So
would-
close to my
That's
ears.
way back there.
I would also suspect that like a symptom of lead poisoning.
There's always that. You know, a lot of dishware in those days was made of lead. They found out that lead was so malleable you could hammer it into all kinds of nice shapes. You know, and
Right,
make
no,
cups
but
and all
I
kinds
keep
of
bringing
stuff.
that up because the white face paint that they used was literally lead based.
Oh, yeah.
So the white face paint that Elizabeth would have been slathering all over her face and putting on her lips every day was lead.
Uh-huh.
It was like so much lead. Yeah.
I know.
But I guess also like lead leads to infertility.
Does,
lead
yeah.
poisoning does lead into fertility, so that's a problem too.
It leads to a lot
of stuff.
organ issues.
Yeah, but I mean those are.
yeah,
I
lead
keep
was.
bringing that up because she smeared it all over her face all the time.
Oh yeah, but again, there was a lot of lead in everything.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
yeah,
they were
absolutely.
ingesting it all the time
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But I mean, no,
Yeah, not good for you. But
no, it does very bad things.
no, yeah. Oh, back to our she was a guy thing. Apparently, Elizabeth did have periods because Philip of Spain was, as you know, interested in knowing whether she could bear children because he still thought there was a chance that he was going to get to marry her. Of course, he wanted an heir, but his spies bribed the queen's launderers for details of whether she was menstruating.
Oh,
Because-
yeah, did she ever cycle? Yeah.
Yeah, and the answer came back, well, yeah, she is menstruating.
Obligatory just because you get your period doesn't mean that you're fertile statement.
I guess that's
Noted.
yeah. What's the other thing? She often wore dresses with low necklines.
Have you met a drag queen ever?
I was going to ask,
there's that.
what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know how.
What, are you saying that she couldn't have been because she would have had a hairy chest if she was a dude?
None of her portraits seem to have her be particularly busty.
That's true. She could have been should have been a guy with a push-up bra kind of thing. going
She
on.
wore those really tight corsets. So.
And the other thing that I was thinking of, okay, so, holy hell, I'm gonna actually defend this for
There
a
you go.
second.
Yeah.
Is that to have the voice of a woman and to have some of the lighter build, there's an easy way to have a boy do that.
Castration.
Castration,
Yeah, I know.
which is to make him a eunuch, and then the testosterone doesn't kick in, and all that pesky hair doesn't show up.
That's a good point.
And actually, frankly, I'm looking at pictures, portraits of Elizabeth now, and they're all like very flat-chested. And she also had the neck ruffle that she loved to wear that would also cover up the difference between her neck. They're very flat-chested. That was what was in style at that point, I know.
Yeah, corsets were rather tight.
Well, they were tight, but they also, that was in style, was to have no boobs at that time. So,
No cleavage, no nothing.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I can't imagine that ever being in style, but okay.
What else have you got out here?
Not much else. I mean, if it's hard to believe they could have castrated the kid because if somebody said, hey, just to make this whole Liz charade work out, we're going to have to castrate you, I think I would be like slipping out the back door and heading on home.
Do you
Going
think even
somewhere.
if somebody was like, but literally you will be the richest person in this country and you will rule it?
That's true, but still.
I watched Amadeus, and that kid was kind of down with it.
Yeah?
I can see this being okay.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, we'll go with that then. Yeah. Okay. So Liz got castrated, and then what else?
I'm sorry. Thank you. That caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay. Actually, over at Elizabeth, I don't know if you guys looked at the Elizabeth files.
Oh, Lord, how could I not?
Yeah.
It is a huge trove of information.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing. Actually, we'll post a link to the Elizabeth files if you're really interested in learning more about Elizabeth. It's pretty cool. It's well written, well organized.
It is well organized. It is one of those sites. I've said this about sites before. Is I feel like there is so much information on them that it's overwhelming. I read 2 or 3 or 4 articles. I don't remember how many I read on there, and then they would keep coming up in searches, and I just stopped going there because there was so much detail. It's quite well done.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's
Yeah,
well
totally.
researched. It's definitely authoritative. But I got this little tidbit from the Elizabeth Files, which was that at some point during marriage negotiations with the various monarchs around Europe, a panel of doctors examined Elizabeth.
What?
Yeah, to see if she could still bear children. I mean, this is a real big deal back in those days.
Oh boy.
And
okay.
yeah, they came to the conclusion that she could. Well, I'm not sure how they could have examined her that closely to determine she could have children without noticing that she had a little something extra down there. You know, you think?
Yeah, you would probably, you would notice if Elizabeth was actually a dude.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be fair.
Yeah, I think you would.
Although,
Yeah.
again, in fairness, just examining somebody doesn't mean that you're going to be able to tell if they can have a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how you tell that either.
I don't know.
Okay, well, to answer our questions, did she send the Roanoke colonists off to their death deliberately?
Yes.
For Roanoke?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah. She actually, when they opened up their food supplies, they found there was nothing but lead makeup in there.
I'm pretty sure, lead, makeup, and neck ruffles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
And a little note said,
Keep warm with this.
Sucks to be you. Anyway, the next question, did she have a child? I'm kind of doubting it. Maybe, but I really kind of doubt it. I think we would have heard something.
I don't know, because I have a hard time with, unless it was, even if it was somebody like Seymour or somebody after the fact, that there were ways for contraception, and there were practices post-copulation, for making sure that a pregnancy didn't come to full term.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These things happen, and those things, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, I saw stuff in the reading that can have a permanent effect on a woman's ability to be able to bear children. So I could see how that's why Eileen, I mean, I don't think that she was actually the Virgin Queen.
Oh, God, no.
I don't think that she abstained for her entire life.
No.
So that's why I leaned to that direction.
Yeah, no, I think if she was pregnant, it had to have happened before she ascended to the throne. If she ever had a child, it would have had to have happened before she was the queen. Yeah. But I do agree. It seems unlikely, but it's possible. But I also totally disagree with the whole idea that obviously William Shakespeare has to be the child of Elizabeth.
That's just fun times.
That's silly to me.
Yeah,
but I don't think she probably had a child, but if she did, it was very early in her life, and that person would have been raised totally separate from her.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and probably not of her own consent, right? I mean, that baby would have been taken away from her early in her life.
Yeah, it would have been like, you're not even going to know who your kid is, probably.
Yeah. That would be my guess.
Which would be a disincentive to ever do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, last question. Was she a guy? I vote
No.
Okay. All right, fine. If you have any thoughts about this, if you're descended from Elizabeth, of course, we would love to hear from you. So
especially if your name is Prince Harry.
Yeah. So write us at Thinking Sideways Podcast.
He's not going to email you, Devin.
So write us at Thinking Sideways Podcast at gmail.com. There's also our website, of course, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can listen to the episodes. You can check the links that we put up for further information, and we will put up a link to the Elizabeth Files.
Yep.
And there's a ton of stuff out there. You'll enjoy it. We're on iTunes, so subscribe, leave us a review and a rating, and we love those really good ratings especially. As for streaming, you can stream us all over the place, so we don't have any recommendations there, really. We're on Facebook, Thinking Sideways Podcast, right?
Yep.
On Facebook, of course, we have our page and also the group. You can join the group.
Yep.
And you can, there's all kinds of good...
Be a groupie.
Yeah, you can be a groupie. There's lots of good commentary and just conversation out there. We're on Twitter. We're Thinking Sideways. And, of course, we have a subreddit, which has got some stuff going on every now and again, at least. Yeah. And last of all, we're on Patreon. So if you want to support the show, totally optional, but if you want to, you can go out and you can pledge a certain amount of money per episode, so be aware of that. If you decide you want to get real generous and give us $50, just remember that's $50 every episode. So,
which is why we have things like the PayPal button. If you want to do a one-time,
do PayPal.
And that's more conducive to your budget, then that's why that's there.
Yeah, you can do that.
We got the merch too.
Yeah,
we
buy
got merch.
a sticker.
We got merch. We got T-shirts and mugs and
new
shirts.
And all kinds of somebody
stuff.
bought the Mary Celeste the other day. That's pretty awesome.
I saw that. Yeah, that's really cool. I have not actually yet seen the Mary Celeste T-shirt. I got to go out and look at it.
What is your deal?
I know.
things. It's lots of things.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm probably going to have to get one for myself.
I
But-
thought about buying you one,
Yeah.
and then I decided I didn't want
That's
to.
I'm gonna
great.
get a bumper sticker for my car.
And there you
really?
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I buy bumper stickers by the gross and put them on all kinds of people's cars.
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing that.
No, probably
Legally,
not a good idea.
no.
Nah.
Emotionally, yes.
Yeah, I like it. So that's patreon.com/thinking sideways.
Or the website. Her merch.
Or the website, yeah. For merch, yeah. All right, well, that's it for Elizabeth. Another great historic mystery solved. So, yeah, you British people, please don't be offended by all this. Yeah, I don't think she had a kid. Yeah, you guys?
I know.
I'm not posh enough.
Yeah, me neither. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Bad Hombres. Instead, it's brought to you by Stitcher Premium. Yeah, if you haven't heard of Stitcher Premium yet, well, you're missing out because that's where all the cool kids are these days. Yeah, you can listen to us on Stitcher.com, and you can hear our content 4 days early and ad-free. Isn't that not cool or what? Also, if you sign up for 12 months, you get a month off if you use our special promo code, which is, you go to Stitcher.com/Thinking Sideways, use the promo code Sideways, and you will get that 1 month free. So to get all that, become a premium member, go out to Stitcher.com today and subscribe. Thinking Sideways.
Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. I am Steve, as usual, joined by...
Devin?
And Joe.
And as per usual... What? I don't know. God, I hate saying... What? Okay, whose fault is it I picked up the word usual? Is it you?
Yeah.
It's their fault.
My fault.
It should be as per always.
As per usual,
I like
because
as per always.
usual is not a word that you can abbreviate
Is so.
or shorten. Is not. Is not.
R2.
Is not. Is not. As usual, we have another mystery for you this week, and it is a historical mystery. So it's we're getting off the murder train.
No, we're gonna get back on. Don't worry.
Well, there is a lot of murder in the story.
That's
There
true.
is.
Okay.
Killing here.
So this week we are going to talk about the historical mystery, which is, did anyone who was with Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer survive when he took the 5 companies of the 7th Cavalry that were under his command at that time into the Indian Territory near the Little Bighorn River in Montana on June 25th, 1876?
Yeah, and actually a lot of people survived the Little Bighorn.
Well, the people that were with Custer specifically didn't.
Yeah, those guys did.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
So the title of this is going to be like an entire paragraph long.
No, it'll be very simple when I title it on the episode thing. So
Did
no big
anyone
deal.
who was with Lieutenant Colonel George...
No.
That is kind of long. That's not going to fit in an iPhone.
Let's get into the
All right,
story
let's
here.
refocus. Sorry.
Actually, before we get into the story, I do need to thank our listener Jonathan, who suggested this to us, I think like 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
That's why it's a historical mystery.
There you go. So thank you, Jonathan, and
Yeah, thanks.
let's pick up with the story. As people probably know, commonly the event that we're going to talk about is known as Custer's Last Stand.
I mean, I would say, yeah, in America.
Yeah, in America, but there
People
are
know
people
about it, but-
all over the rest of the world that have only heard of Custer
Or-
and not really know a lot
Or
about
not
it.
even
not at
heard
all.
of Custer. Yeah.
I think we're saying custard wrong, and
It's
Yeah.
Custer.
I know.
Yeah, George Custer.